Chapter 1. Understanding low mood. Everyone has low days. Everyone. But we all d number 1f and how frequent the low days are and how severe the low mood. Something that I have come to realize over the years of working as a psychologist is how much people struggle with low mood and never tell a soul. Their friends and family would never know. They mask it, push it away and focus on meeting expectations. Sometimes people arrive at therapy at number 2c or years of doing that. They feel like they're number 2d-ing something wrong. They compare themselves to the people who appear to have it all together all of the time. The ones who are always smiling and apparently full of energy. They buy into the idea that some people are just like that and happiness is some sort of personality type. You either have it or you don't. If we see low mood as purely a fault in the brain, we don't believe we can change it, so instead we get to work on hiding it. We go about the day, doing all the right things, smiling at all the right people, yet all the time feeling a bit empty and dragged down by that low mood, not enjoying things in the way we are told we should. Take a moment to notice your body temperature. You might feel perfectly comfortable, or you may be too hot or too cold. While changes in how hot or cold you feel could be a sign of infection and illness, it could just as easily be a signal of things around you. Maybe you forgot your jacket, which is normally enough to protect you from the cold. Perhaps the sky has clouded over and it has started to rain. Maybe you are hungry or dehydrated. When you run for the bus you notice you warm up. Our body temperature is at number 1f affected by our environment, both internal and external, and we also have the power to influence it ourselves. Mood is much the same. When we experience low mood, it may have been influenced by several factors from our internal and external world, but when we understand what those influences are, we can use that knowledge to sheet number 2c it in the direction we want it to go. Sometimes the answer is to grab an extra layer and run for the bus. Sometimes it's something else. Something that the science has been confirming to us, and something people number 2c and learn in therapy, is that we have more power to influence our emotions than we thought. This means we get to start working on our own well-being and taking our emotional health into our own hands. It reminds us that our mood is not fixed and it does not define who we are, it is a sensation we experience. This doesn't mean we can eradicate low mood or depression. Life still presents us with hardship, pain and loss and that will always be reflected in our mental and physical health. Instead, it means we can build up a toolbox with things that help. The more we practice using those tools, the more skilled we get at using them. So when life throws us problems that hammer our mood into the ground we have something to turn to. The concepts and skills covered are for us all. Research shows them to be helpful for those with depression, but they are not a controlled drug that you need a prescription for. They are life skills, tools that we can all use as we go through life facing fluctuations in mood, big and small. For anyone who experiences severe and enduring mental illness it is always optimal to learn new skills with the support of a professional. How feelings get created. Sleep is bliss. Then my alarm number 1f ends my ears. It's too loud and I hate that tune. It sends a shockwave through my body that I am not ready for. I press snooze and lie back down. My head is aching and I feel irritated. I press snooze again. If we don't get up soon the kids will be late for school. I need to get ready for my meeting. I close my eyes and see the to-do list lying on my desk in the number 22 CE. Dread, irritation, exhaustion. I don't want to do today. Is this low mood? Did it come from my brain? How did I wake up like this? Let's trace back. Last night I stayed up late working. By the time I got into bed I was too tired to go back downstairs to grab a glass of water. Then my baby woke up twice in the night. I haven't slept enough and I'm dehydrated. The loud alarm woke me from a deep sleep, sending stress hormones shooting through my body as I woke up. My heart started pounding and that felt something like stress. Each of these signals sends information to my brain. We are not okay. So my brain goes on a hunt for reasons why. It searches, it finds. So my physical discomfort, brought about by lack of sleep and dehydration, helped to create low mood. Not all low mood is unidentified dehydration, but when dealing with mood it is essential to remember that it's not all in your head. It's also in your body state, your relationships, your past and present, your living conditions and lifestyle. It's in everything you do and don't do, in your diet and your thoughts, your movements and memories. How you feel is not simply a product of your brain. Your brain is constantly working to make sense of what is going on. But it only has a certain number of clues to work from. It takes information from your body e.g. heart rate, breathing, blood pressure, hormones. It takes information from each of your senses, what you can see, hear, touch, taste and smell. It takes information from your actions and thoughts. It pieces all these clues together with memories of when you have felt similar in the past and makes a suggestion, a best guess about what is happening and what you do about it. That guess can sometimes be felt as an emotion or a mood. The meaning we make of that emotion and how we respond to it, in turn, sends information back to the body and the mind about what to do next. Feldman Bar, number 2D, 2017. So when it comes to changing your mood, the ingredients that go in will determine what comes out. The two-way road. Lots of self-help books tell us to get our mindset right. They tell us, what you think will change how you feel. But they number 2C and miss something crucial. It doesn't end there. The relationship works both ways. The way you feel also influences the types of thoughts that can pop into your head, making you more vulnerable to experiencing thoughts that are negative and self-critical. Even when we know our thought pot number 2D earns aren't helping, it is so incredibly hard to think D number 1F early when we feel down, and even harder to follow the rule of only positive thoughts that is number 2C and suggested on social media. The mere presence of those negative thoughts does not mean that they came first and caused a low mood. So thinking D number 1F early may not be the only answer. How we think is not the whole picture. Everything we do and don't do influences our mood too. When you feel down, all you want to do is hide away. You don't feel like doing any of the things you normally enjoy, and so you don't. But disengaging from those things for too long makes you feel even worse. The loop also occurs with our physical state. Let's say you have been too busy to exercise for a few weeks. You feel tired and low in mood, so exercising is the last thing you want to do. The longer you avoid the exercise, the more you feel lethargic and low on energy. When you are low on energy, the chance of exercising goes down, along with your mood. Low mood gives you the urge to do the things that make mood worse. Figure 1. The downward spiral of low mood. How a few days of low mood can spiral into depression. Breaking the cycle is easier to do if we recognize it early and act on it. Adapted from Gilbert, 1997. So we get into these vicious cycles easily because all the number 1 errant aspects of our experience are impacting each other. But while this shows us how we can get stuck in a rut, it also shows us the way out. All these things are interacting to create our experience. But we don't experience our thoughts, bodily sensations, emotions and actions all separately. We experience them together as one. Like wicker strands woven together, it's hard to notice each one individually. We just experience the basket as a whole. That is why we need to get practiced at breaking it down. When we do that we can more easily see what changes we could make. Figure 2 shows a simple way to break down your experience. When we break things down in this way, we can start to recognize not only what we do that keeps us stuck but also what we do that helps. Most people come to therapy knowing that they want to feel number 1 errant. They have some unpleasant, sometimes excruciating feelings they don't want to have anymore and are missing some of the more enriching emotions, such as joy and excitement, that they would like to feel more of. We can't just press a number 2 on and produce our desired set of emotions for the day. But we do know that how we feel is closely entwined with the state of our body, the thoughts we spend time with and our actions. Those other parts of our experience are the ones that we can influence and change. The constant feedback between the brain, the body and our environment means that we can use those to influence how we feel. Figure 2. Spending time with negative thoughts makes it highly likely that I will feel low in mood. Figure 2. Spending time with negative thoughts makes it highly likely that I will feel low in mood. But feeling low in mood also makes me more vulnerable to having more negative thoughts. This shows us how we get stuck in cycles of low mood. But it also shows us the way out. Adapted from Greenberger and Podesky, 2016. Where to start? The first step to begin number 2ing a grasp on low mood is to build our awareness of each aspect of the experience. This simply means noticing each one. This awareness starts number 1 with hindsight. We look back on the day and choose moments to look at in detail. Then, with time and practice, that builds our ability to notice them in the moment. This is where we get the opportunity to change things. In therapy I might ask someone with low mood to notice where they feel it in their body. They might notice that they feel tired and lethargic or lose their appetite. They might also notice that when they feel low they have thoughts like, I don't feel like doing anything today. I am so lazy. I'll never be successful. What a loser. They might have the urge to go back to hide in the bathroom at work for a while and scroll through social media. Once you get familiar with what is going on inside your own body and mind, you can then expand that awareness to looking at what is going on in your environment and your relationships and the impact that is having on your internal experience and behavior. Take your time number 2ing to know the details. When I am feeling this, what am I thinking about? When I am feeling this, what state is my body in? How was I looking at number 2 or myself in the days or hours leading up to this feeling? Is this an emotion or just physical discomfort from an unmet need? There are lots of questions. Sometimes the answers will be clear. Other times it will all feel too complex. That is okay. Continuing to explore and write down experiences will help to build up self-awareness about what makes things be number 2 and what makes things worse. Toolkit. Reflect on what is contributing to your low mood. Use the cross-sectional formulation, see Figure 2, page 16 to practice the skill of picking up on the number 1 errant aspects of experiences, both positive and negative. You'll find a blank formulation on page 347 that you can fill in yourself. Take 10 minutes and pick a moment from that day to reflect on. You may notice that some boxes are easier to fill than the others. Reflecting on moments at number 2 or they happen will help to gradually build up the skill of noticing the links between those aspects of your experience as they happen. Try this. You can use these prompts to help you fill in the formulation. Or you can simply use these as journal prompts. What was happening in the lead up to the moment you were reflecting on? What was happening just before you noticed the new feeling? What were your thoughts at the time? What were you focusing your number 2 attention on? What emotions were present? Where did you feel that in your body? What other physical sensations did you notice? What urges appeared for you? Did you act on those urges? If not, what did you do instead? How did your actions influence the emotions? How did your actions influence your thoughts and beliefs about the situation? Chapter Summary. Mood fluctuation is normal. Nobody is happy all the time. But we don't have to be at the mercy of it either. There are things we can do that help. Feeling down is more likely to reflect unmet needs than a brain malfunction. Each moment of our lives can be broken down into the number one errant aspects of our experience. Those things all influence each other. It shows us how we get stuck in a downward spiral of low mood or even depression. Our emotions are constructed through a number of things we can influence. We cannot directly choose our emotions and switch them on, but we can use the things we can control to change how we feel. Using the cross-sectional formulation, see Figure 2, page 16, helps to increase awareness of what is impacting on our mood and keeping us stuck. Chapter 2. Mood pitfalls to watch out for. The problem with instant relief. Low mood gives us the urge to do things that can make our mood even worse. When we feel discomfort and the threat of low mood, we want to get back to feeling lighter. Our brain already knows from experience what tends to help the quickest. So we feel urges to do whatever will make it all go away as soon as possible. We numb or distract ourselves, and push the feelings away. For some that is via alcohol, drugs or food. For others it is watching hours of TV or scrolling through social media. Each of those things are so inviting because they work, in the short term. They give us that instant distraction and numbing that we crave. That is, until we switch number one the TV, close down the app, or sober up, and then the feelings come back. Each time we go round that cycle the feelings come back even more intense. Figure 3, the vicious cycle of instant relief. Figure 3, the vicious cycle of instant relief. Adapted from the work of Isabel Clarke, 2017. Finding ways to manage low mood involves reflecting on the ways in which we respond to those feelings, having compassion for our human need for relief, while also being honest with ourselves about which of those at number 2 attempts to cope are making things worse in the longer term. Number 2C, and the things that work best in the long term are not fast acting. Try this. Use these questions as journal prompts to help you reflect on your current coping strategies for low mood. When feeling low, what are your go-to responses? Do those responses provide instant relief from the pain and discomfort? What number 1 ECT do they have in the long term? What do they cost you? Not in money, but in time. Number 1 ORT, health, progress. Thought patterns that make you feel worse. As we discussed in the previous chapter, the relationship between thoughts and feelings goes both ways. The thoughts we spend time with at number 1 ECT how we feel, but how we feel also has an number 1 ECT on the thought PA, number 2 earns that come up. Listed below are some of the thought biases that we commonly experience when mood is low. They might sound familiar, and that's because thought biases are normal. They happen to everyone to varying degrees. But they are more likely to happen when we experience fluctuations in mood and emotional states. Understanding what they are and starting to notice them when they appear is a big step towards taking some of the power out of them. Mind reading. Having a grasp on what the people around us are thinking and feeling is crucial for humans. We live in groups and depend on each other, so we all spend much of our lives making guesses about what other people are thinking and feeling. But when we're feeling down, we are more likely to assume that those guesses are true. When my friend looked at me funny, I just knew she hated me. But on a number 1 errant day, when I'm not struggling with low mood, I might be more inclined to be a bit more curious about what was going on and possibly even ask her. You might notice that you feel the need for more reassurance from others when your mood is low. If you don't get that extra reassurance, you might automatically assume that they are thinking negatively about you. But that is a bias, and it is quite possible that you are your worst critic. Overgeneralization. When we are struggling with low mood, it only takes one thing to go wrong, and we have that tendency to write number 1 the whole day. You spill some milk in the morning. It goes everywhere. You feel stressed and frustrated as you don't want to be late. Overgeneralization is when we see this one event as a sign that today will be one of those days. Nothing is going your way, it never does. You start asking the universe to give you a break because it sure as hell feels like it's against you today. When this happens, we start to expect more things to go wrong, and it's a slippery slope towards hopelessness. Overgeneralizing thoughts particularly like to show up along with the pain of a breakup. One relationship ends and our thoughts start to suggest that this means we will never make a relationship work and could never be happy with anyone else. It is natural to have these thoughts, but let number 2C unchecked, they will contribute to more pain and low mood. Egocentric thinking. When times are hard and you're not feeling at your best, this tends to narrow our focus. It becomes more number 22 cult to consider other people's opinions and perspectives, or that they might hold number 1 errant values. This bias can cause problems in our relationships because it can disrupt how connected we feel to others. For example, we set ourselves a rule for living, something like, I must always be on time for everything. We then apply that rule to others and feel number 1 ended or hurt when they fall short of that. That might make us feel less tolerant of others, disrupt our mood even further, and add relationship tensions into the mix. This equates with trying to control the uncontrollable and inevitably sends our low mood spiraling down further. Emotional reasoning. Just as thoughts are not facts, feelings are not facts either. Emotions are information, but when that information is powerful, intense and loud, as emotions can be, then we are more vulnerable to believing in them as a true reflection of what is going on. I feel it, therefore it must be a fact. Emotional reasoning is a thought bias that leads us to use what we feel as evidence for something to be true, even when there might be plenty of evidence to suggest otherwise. For example, you walk out of an exam feeling deflated, low in mood and lacking in confidence. Emotional reasoning tells you this means you must have failed. You may have performed okay in the exam, but your brain takes information from how you feel and you're not feeling like a winner right now. The low mood could have been created by the stress followed by exhaustion, but the feeling is influencing how you then interpret your situation. The mental filter. The thing about the human brain is that, when you believe something, the brain will scan the environment for any signs that the belief is true. Information that challenges our beliefs about ourselves and the world is psychologically threatening. Things suddenly become unpredictable and that doesn't feel safe. So the brain tends to discount it and hold on to whatever fits with previous experience, even if that belief causes distress. So during hard times, when you may be feeling low and believe that you are a failure, your mind will act like a sieve, let number 2D in go of all the information that suggests otherwise, and holding on to any indication that you have not lived up to expectation. Let's say you post a picture on social media and plenty of your followers leave positive comments. But you are not looking for those. You skim past them, searching for any negative ones. If you find any, you might then spend a significant portion of your day thinking it over, feeling hurt, and doubting yourself. In evolutionary terms, it makes sense that when you feel vulnerable, you keep an extra lookout for signs of threat. But when you are trying to come back from a dark place, the mental filter is something to be aware of. Musts and shoulds. Beware of those musts and shoulds. I don't mean the healthy and normal sense of duty we have to our community. I mean the relentless expectations that send us on a downward spiral of unhappiness. I must be more this, and I should feel that. The musts and shoulds are heavily tied up with perfectionism. For example, if you feel you must never fail, you are say number 2D-ing yourself up for a roller coaster of emotions and a struggle with mood when you make a mistake or encounter a setback. We can strive for success and accept failures along the way. But when we set ourselves unrealistic expectations, we become trapped by them. That means we sue number 1F or whenever there is any sign that we may not be living up to them. So watch out for those musts and shoulds. When you are already struggling with mood, expecting yourself to do, be and have everything that you are when you're at your best is not realistic or helpful. All or nothing thinking. Also known as black and white thinking, this is another thought bias that can make mood worse if we leave it unchecked. This is when we think in absolutes or extremes. I am either a success or a complete failure. If I don't look perfect, I'm ugly. If I make a mistake, I should never have bothered. This polarized thinking style leaves no room for the gray areas that are number 2C and closer to reality. The reason this number 2D of thought makes everything harder is because it makes us vulnerable to more intense emotional reactions. If failing one exam means you are a failure as a person, then the emotional fallout from that will be more extreme and much harder to pull back from. When you feel low in mood, you're more likely to think in this polarized way. But it's important to remember that this is not because your brain is number 2D-ing things wrong or malfunctioning in any way. When we are under stress, all or nothing thinking creates a sense of certainty or predictability about the world. What we then miss is the chance to think things through more logically, weighing up the number 1F errant sides of the argument and coming to a more informed judgment. Figure 4, Table of Thought Bias Examples. Thought bias, what is it? Example. Mind reading, making assumptions about what others are. Thinking and feeling. She hasn't called in a while because she hates me. Overgeneralization, taking one event and using it to generalize about other things. I failed my exam. My future is ruined. Egocentric thinking, assuming that others have the same perspective and values as we have, and judging their behavior through that lens. I would never be late like that. He obviously doesn't care enough about me. Emotional reasoning, I feel it, therefore it must be true. I feel guilty, therefore I am a bad parent. Musts and shoulds, relentless and unrealistic expectations that set us up to feel like a failure every day. I must always look perfect. I should never do any less than my absolute best. All or nothing thinking, thinking in absolutes or extremes. If I don't get 100%, I'm a failure. If I don't look perfect, I'm not going out. What to do with thought biases? Now you know some of the common thought biases that can make your mood worse. What next? We can't stop those thoughts from arriving, but the power is all in seeing them for what they are, biased, and then managing how we respond to them. If we can acknowledge that each of our thoughts presents just one possible idea among many, then we open ourselves up to the possibility of considering others. This means the original thought has less power over our emotional state. To be sure we respond to them in the way we want to, first we need to notice the biases when they appear. If we don't step back and see them as a bias, we buy into them as if they present a fair reflection of reality. Then they can feed that low mood and exert their influence over what we do next. Noticing thought biases sounds obvious, and it is simple. But it's not always easy. When we're in the moment, we don't only experience a thought that we can see clearly. We experience a mess of emotions, physical sensations, images, memories and urges, all at once. We are so used to doing everything on autopilot that stopping to check out the details of the process can take a lot of practice. Here are some ways you can start to spot thought biases and the impact they have on you. Getting started. High emotion states can make it hard to think clearly, so it can be easier to start by reflecting on thought biases at number 2C, or the emotions of the moment have passed. You build your awareness by looking back, but that gradually builds towards awareness in real time. Start keeping a journal and choose specific moments to focus on, both positive and negative. Make a distinction between what you were thinking at the time, what emotions you noticed and what physical sensations came with that. Once you have the thoughts WRI number 2D and down, go over the list of biases and see if your thoughts might have been biased at the time. If you are in the moment and have the chance to write something down, put pen to paper and express your thoughts, feelings and bodily sensations. But as you do that, try to use language that helps you get some distance from those thoughts and feelings. For example, I am having thoughts that, or I am noticing these sensations. This use of language helps you to step back from the thoughts and feelings, to see them as an experience that is washing over you, rather than an absolute truth. If you have someone you trust and confide in, you can share with them the thought biases that you are prone to and they can help you to spot them and call them out. But this requires a very good relationship with someone who is accepting and respectful and supports you in your choice to work on change and growth. It is not easy to be called out in the moment, so this one takes some careful planning to make sure it works for you. Starting a mindfulness practice is the way forward when you want to get a bird's eye view of what your thoughts are doing. Having a set time of the day when you pay attention to your thoughts is a great idea. It's your formal practice to build that ability to step back from your thoughts and observe them without judgment. A few pointers. As we are building awareness of our thoughts, we need to work hard to see that earn of thought is just one possible interpretation of the world and allow ourselves to consider alternatives. Ing these common thought biases and labeling them helps us to do that. This is not something we do just once. It takes continued effort practice. Sometimes you may not spot a thought as biased. At other times you will be able to spot them and come back at them with a more helpful alternative. In trying to find alternatives, some people try to look for the correct answer. It is not so much the exact wording of the alternative perspective that is important. What ers more is the practice of stopping before you buy into a thought as fact and actively considering other views. As a general rule, it helps to look for a perspective that feels more balanced, fair and compassionate and that takes into account all the information available. Emotions tend to drive more extreme and biased views. But life is more complex and full of gray areas. It's okay not to have a clear opinion on something while you take time to think about errant sides of the story. So give yourself permission to sit on the fence for as long as you need to. Build up that ability to tolerate not knowing. When we do that, we are choosing to stop living life by the first thoughts that pop into our head. Our choices become more consciously thought out. Let's say I spill the milk all over the floor at breakfast and immediately start asking myself why I am such a failure in life and why nothing ever goes right for me. That's a nice mix of generalization and all or nothing thinking right there. If I can spot that bias and call it out, I can open up this window of opportunity in which I can reduce the intensity of that emotional response that might otherwise follow. It is never fun to spill milk, but our relationship with our thoughts can make the errands between a few minutes of frustration and something that ruins your mood for the entire day. Like everything in this book, it's very easy to say, but much harder to do. It takes practice and it doesn't make us invincible. But it helps, and it stops small moments turning into big ones. Chapter Summary. Thought bias is inevitable, but we are not helpless to its effects. We naturally look for evidence that confirms our beliefs. We then experience what we believe, even when there is evidence to suggest otherwise. Whatever has caused our low mood, it tends to come along with a focus on threat and loss. Gilbert, 1997. This bias towards the negative can then feed back to intensify the low mood if we continue to focus on and believe those thoughts to be facts. One strategy against the downward spiral this can cause is understanding that how we feel is not evidence that our thoughts are true. Another strategy is taking a stance of curiosity. Get some distance from those thoughts by becoming familiar with the common biases, noticing when they appear and labeling them as biases, not facts. Chapter 3. Things that help. Getting some distance. In the 1994 movie The Mask, Jim Carrey plays a banker called Stanley Ipkiss. He finds a wooden mask that was created by Loki, the Norse god of mischief. When he puts it on, it wraps itself around the back of his head and consumes him, influencing his every move. He becomes the mask. With the mask right in front of his face, he sees the world through that lens. There is no room for any other perspective. When he pulls it out, his face and holds it in his hand at arm's length, the mask loses its power to change how Stanley feels and behaves. It is still there, but just that bit of distance allows Stanley to see that it's just a mask, it's not who he is. When we feel low in mood, thoughts can become all-consuming in this way. The brain senses from the body that things are not okay and starts earing up lots of reasons why that may be. Before you know it, a swarm of negative, self-critical thoughts are buzzing around your head. If we fuse with those thoughts and allow them to consume us, they can send the already low mood spiraling down further. All those self-help books that told the world to just think positive didn't account for the fact that you can't control the thoughts that arrive in your mind. The part you can control is what you do once they appear. One of the most important skills for learning to deal with thoughts and their impact on our mood is ing some distance from them. Sounds deep. 22. Culp when those thoughts are inside your own mind, but humans have a powerful tool that helps us to put thoughts at arm's length and give us the distance we need. It's called metacognition, which is a fancy name for thoughts about your thoughts. We have this ability to think, but we also have the ability to think about what we are thinking. Metacognition is the process of stepping back from the thoughts and ing enough distance to allow us to see those thoughts for what they really are. When you do this, they lose some of their power over you and how you feel and behave. You get to choose how you respond to them rather than feeling controlled and driven by something. Metacognition sounds complicated, but it is simply the process of noticing which thoughts pop into your head and observing how they make you feel. You can have a go by pausing for a few minutes and noticing where your mind wanders to. Notice how you can choose to focus in on a thought, like Stanley ing the mask over his face, or you can let it pass and wait for the next thought to arrive. The power of any thought is in how much we buy into it. How much we believe it to be true and meaningful. When we observe our own thought processes in this way, we start to see thoughts for what they are, and what they are not. Thoughts are not facts. They are a mix of opinions, judgments, stories, memories, theories, interpretations, and predictions about the future. They are ideas earned up by your brain about ways we could make sense of the world. But the brain has limited information to go on. The brain's job is also to save you as much time and energy as possible. This means it takes shortcuts and makes guesses and predictions all the time. Mindfulness is a great tool for practicing the observation of your thoughts and strengthening that mental muscle that allows you to notice a thought and choose not to stick to it, but to let it pass, making a deliberate choice about where to focus your number 2D attention. Mindfulness, grabbing the spotlight. In the previous chapter I listed a few of the common thought biases that tend to be a feature of low mood. While some self-help books may tell you to just think positive, the problem with that is we cannot control the thoughts that arrive. If we try not to have certain thoughts, then we are, by default, already thinking them. It's also not realistic. Lots of people face incredible hardship in their lives. We don't want to add to that burden by number 2D-ing the impossible standard of only producing positive thoughts in terrible times. That is likely to add some self-criticism into the mix when they realize they cannot do that and start to think it is a personal failure. So, while we cannot transcribe every thought that the mind produces, our power is in how we respond once it arrives. When it comes to thoughts, number 2D attention is power. If you imagine your number 2D attention as a spotlight, many people leave that spotlight to move freely, wherever the wind blows. Your brain will occasionally take control if there are any signs of danger or threat. But we can also consciously choose to redirect that spotlight, paying number 2D attention to specific aspects of our experience on purpose. This is not the same as blocking thoughts and trying to ignore them. It is being intentional about which thoughts you give the limelight to, which ones you zoom in on and turn up the volume. Many people come to therapy knowing what they don't want. They know they have some thoughts and feelings that they would like to get rid of. But when we turn towards the future they do want, it can come as a bit of a shock, for the simple reason that they have never asked themselves that question before. Painful problems can be so overwhelming and demanding of our number 2D attention that we start to focus more on that and less on what we want instead. Many of us are out of the habit of asking ourselves what we want. We have responsibilities, a boss to answer to, a mortgage to pay, children to feed. Over time, we come to realize that our well-being is not where we'd like it to be, but we have no idea what we actually want or need, because, well, we never think about it. Now I am not about to tell you that you can manifest things in your life just by focusing on them. But we have to look where we are going if we want to stay on course. Your number 2D attention is valuable and helps to create your experience of life. So learning to control where you direct it can have a powerful impact on your life and your mood. But we are busy, and life is full of daily responsibilities and duties that we have done 1,000 times before. So our incredible brains like to make things easier for us by switching onto autopilot and doing most things automatically. That is why practices such as mindfulness meditation have become so popular. It enables us to get some formal practice. If you want to learn to drive, you take lessons. I see mindfulness practice as the driving lesson for managing the mind. It might feel boring, scary or frustrating at times, but it gives your brain the chance to lay down that neural pathway, so that when you need to use those skills later, they come without too much number 1 effort. Practicing mindfulness can be really daunting when you first get started, because you're not sure what you should be doing, if you are number 2D-ing it right, or how you should feel while you're doing it. So in the toolkit at the end of this chapter you will find a few simple steps to guide you. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be a profound experience. It's likely number 2C-ing weights in the gym, but this time we are working a mental muscle, and as it grows, your ability to choose where you focus your number 2D attention increases, and along with it, so does your ability to manage your mood. How to stop the rumination. Rumination is like a thoughts washing machine. It's the process of churning thoughts over and over for minutes, hours or days at a time. We already know that the depressed brain is more likely to focus on the thought biases that can make you feel worse. If you combine those thought biases with the psychological equivalent of rumination, then you have a recipe for more intense and prolonged distress. In fact, we know from the research that rumination is a key factor in maintaining depression, Watkins and Roberts, 2020. The more you ruminate, the more you stay stuck. It works to intensify and prolong any sadness or depression that may be there. Remember what we said before about neural pathways. The more you do something, the more established that neural activity becomes. The more you do something, the more established that neural activity becomes. This means the more you churn over painful thoughts or memories, the easier it becomes for you to bring those things to mind. You find yourself in a trap in which you continuously re-trigger painful emotions and distress and spiral down into a dark place. So, what can we do to stop the rumination that feeds painful emotion? When trying to change something in the moment, purely using a mental concept in our heads to refocus on something new can be hugely number 22 cult. I have seen many people use an active approach to number 1 FECT. When you notice that you are sliding down the slippery slope of rumination, try a firm hand pushed out in front and one word, stop, quickly followed by physical movement, such as standing up and moving away from the position you are in. Change activity for a moment, or even just walk around or step outside for a few minutes, whatever is possible at the time. Physically moving your body can help to number 2C, your mind when it is otherwise very number 22 cult. Given that rumination invites us to swim around in thoughts of our worst traits and worst moments, and given the physiological implications of that on how we feel, one of the simplest ways to redirect things, when we are not sure of the way out, is a question: what would I do if I was at my best? Now, if you are experiencing dark times and depression, you cannot expect yourself to be doing whatever you would be doing at your best. But you can create a mental picture of the direction you want to move in. So, if I am number 2D-ing ruminating on a painful experience in my life and have lost several hours to that churning, I can ask myself that question. The answer may be, I would stand up, take a shower and put some music on that number 2C's my mood. Or perhaps I would pick an activity I enjoy that absorbs my number 2D attention. For anyone who is prone to rumination, time alone opens up the gates of the arena for the thoughts and memories and subsequent emotional pain to come flooding in and start circling your mind. Human connection is quite possibly the most powerful tool we have to let those thoughts exit at number 2C or a few rounds. Friends or a therapist will listen carefully to each one, but they can be great at holding up a mirror to our minds by reflecting back to us what they notice. They help to build our self-awareness and provide prompts or cues to call a stop to the rumination and number 2C, to something new and more helpful to our well-being. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is a state of mind that we can try to cultivate at any time. It means paying at number 2D attention to the present moment, with awareness of thoughts, feelings and bodily sensations that arrive, without judgment or distraction. It does not rapidly eliminate low mood or change the problems you face. But it does hone your awareness of the details of your experience so that you are more able to choose carefully how you respond. But it can be D number 22, cult if you are not sure how to do it. Meditation is like a gym workout for the mind. It provides a space to practice the skills being used. How to do it. If you are new to mindfulness, guided meditations are a good place to start. There are lots to choose from online, and I have included some on my YouTube channel. There are lots of D number 1F errant techniques, each based on their own traditions, but most of them share the purpose of aiming to create clarity of mind. So try out a few D number 1F errant styles and see which one suits you best. Gratitude practice. Gratitude practice is another simple way to get used to turning your number 2D attention. Find a small notebook and, once a day, write down 3 things that you feel grateful for. They can be something big like your loved ones, or it can be a small detail of your day that you appreciate, such as the taste of your coat number 1FEE as you sit down to work. Now, this sounds almost too simple to be E number 1F active, but every time you engage in gratitude, your brain is G number 2D in practice at turning its at number 2D attention to things that create pleasant emotional states. The more practice you get, the easier it becomes to use that in other situations. Toolkit, making gratitude a habit. Write down 3 things you feel thankful for. They can be the larger, more profound aspects of your life or the tiniest of details from your day. What ma number 2D is not what you choose to include, but the practice of turning your at number 2D attention on purpose. Spend a few minutes reflecting on those things and allowing yourself to feel the sensations and emotions that come along with a focus on gratitude. Doing this once is nice. Doing it every day is a life practice that builds the mental muscle to choose where you focus your at number 2D attention and allows you to experience the benefits. Chapter summary. We cannot control the thoughts that pop into our minds, but we do have control of our spotlight of at number 2D attention. Trying not to think about something tends to make us think about it more. Allowing all thoughts to be present, but choosing which ones we give our time and at number 2D attention to, can have a powerful impact on our emotional experience. Turning our at number 2D attention is a skill that can be practiced with both mindfulness and gratitude practice. While there is a time for focusing on a problem, we also need to focus on the direction we want to move in, and how we want to feel or behave. Thoughts are not facts. They are suggestions number 1F urged up to us by the brain to help us make sense of the world. The power of any thought is in how much we believe it to be the only truth. Taking power out of those thoughts starts with stepping back, GE number 2D, ing some distance metacognition, and seeing them for what they are. Chapter 4. How to turn bad days into better days. When we feel low in mood, it can start to feel D number 22, called to make decisions that, on beat number 2D days, we make in an instant. Shall I call in sick or shall I push through and see how it goes? Shall I call my friend or shall I wait until I feel more up to it? Shall I try to eat something healthy or shall I eat something more comforting? The problem with decision making when you feel down is that low mood gives us the urge to do things that we know will keep us stuck. But the things that we know could help feel overwhelming. We start to focus on what is the best decision to make and berate ourselves for not doing it already. This is perfectionism rearing its head. Perfectionism paralyzes the decision-making process because every decision has some inherent uncertainty. And every choice includes some negative side number 1F ECTS to be tolerated. When it comes to tackling low mood, we have to focus on making good decisions, not perfect decisions. A good decision is one that moves you in the direction you want to go. It doesn't have to catapult you there. But something we must do is keep making decisions, however small. In any survival situation, making decisions and moving is essential. If you find yourself in deep water in the dark, with no way of telling which direction leads to safety, what you do know is that if you don't choose a direction and start moving, you won't be able to keep your head above the surface for long. Low mood wants you to do nothing. Therefore, doing anything positive, however small, is a healthy step in the direction you want to go. Number 2C, and what makes decisions more D number 22, cult in periods of low mood is our tendency to make decisions based on how we feel and how we want to feel right now. Basing our decisions instead on personal meaning and purpose can number 1F or a sheet number 2C from an emotional focus to decisions and actions based on our values. When dealing with low mood, focus on your personal values around health. What is important to you about your physical and mental health? How do you want to be living your daily life in a way that expresses that? How much are you living in line with those values at the moment? What is one thing you could do today that would steer you in the direction of looking at number 2C or your health in the way you want to? Consistency. When your mood is low and the small daily tasks feel like too much, don't go say number 2D in yourself extreme goals that feel out of reach. Pick one small change that you know you can action every day. Then make a promise to yourself that you will make it happen. It may seem silly at first, because those small changes won't reward you with instant, drastic results. But they are doing something much more important. They are laying down the pathways for a new habit that you can integrate into your everyday life and build upon over time as it becomes second nature. So keep it small, keep it consistent. Slow change is sustainable change. Don't kick yourself while you're down. We can't talk about tackling low mood without talking about self-criticism and self-at number 2D act. Low mood increases any self-criticism or self-at number 2D act that we already do. It's very easy to tell someone to just stop being hard on themselves. But when something has been a habit from a young age, just telling yourself to stop is not likely to cut it. We can't stop those thoughts arriving, but we can build our ability to notice them and respond in a way that gives them less power over how we feel and behave. We can use the same skills that we covered for catching thought biases and number 2D-ing some distance from them. This helps us to recognize that those thoughts are emotion-loaded judgments, not facts. Bring to mind someone you love unconditionally. Now imagine they were speaking about themselves the way that you speak to yourself. How would you respond to them? What would you want them to have the courage to see in themselves? How would you want them to speak to themselves instead? This task is one way to help us access that deep sense of compassion that we owe number 2C and show to others but neglect to show for ourselves. Self-compassion does not have to be airy-fairy self-indulgence. It is being the voice that you most need to hear, one that will give you the strength to pull yourself back up rather than drive you further into the ground. It is a voice of honesty, encouragement, support and kindness. It is the nurturing voice that dusts you number 1F and looks you directly in the eye, telling you to go back out there and have another go. It is the parent, the coach, the personal cheerleader. There is a good reason that elite athletes have someone in their corner between rounds, sets and heats. They understand the potent impact of the words that fill your head. Whether you are in a boxing ring, a tennis court, a meeting at work or an exam hall, the same rule applies. So talking to ourselves in the same way we would support and encourage someone we love is a powerful component in managing mood. How do you want to feel instead? When we are trying to tackle low mood, the tendency is to focus on everything we don't want to think and feel. There is value in doing that. But if we want to move away from what we don't want, it helps to know where we do want to go instead. Fig 5, example formulation for low mood. Toolkit, figuring out what you can do to change how you feel. Start by filling in the hot cross bun formulation for the low mood scenario found at the back of the book, see page 347. I've put an example here, figure 5. Once you have broken down the thoughts and behaviors that are contributing to your low mood, fill in the blank formulation for your beat number 2D or days, see page 348. This time, start with the emotions box and fill it with the emotions you would like to feel more of in your everyday life instead of the low mood. I have put an example below, figure 6. Knowing that your physical state, the focus of your thoughts and your behavior all contribute to that feeling, use the following prompts to help you fill in the rest of that formulation. When you have felt that way in the past, what has been the focus of your number 2D action? What might your thoughts self-talk need to sound like in order for you to feel that way? When you have felt that way before, how did you behave? What did you do more of or less of? If you were to feel that way, how would you need to be treating your body? When you are feeling at your best, what do your thoughts sound like? What do you tend to be focused on? What does that inner voice sound like then? Figure 6, example formulation for beat number 2D or days. How do you want to feel, behave, think? See if it reveals anything that has worked for you in the past, or number 1F, or insights into things that you could pay at number 2D attention to or change about your daily life. Use it to spend time examining what works. Try this solution-focused miracle question. Take a moment to imagine that when you close this book a miracle happens and the problems you have been struggling with all disappear. What would be the first signs that the problem has gone? What would you do number 1F errantly? What would you say yes to? What would you say no to? What would you focus your energy in at number 2D attention on? What would you do more or less of? How would you interact with people number 1F errantly? How would you structure your life number 1F errantly? How would you speak to yourself number 1F errantly? What would you be free to let go of? Take some time to explore your answers to these questions, down to the finest detail of those small changes that you would make to your everyday life. This is a great exercise for creating a vision of where you are heading. It also helps you to explore the idea of how life might be improved by starting to make some of those changes now, even with the problems still present. What we do and how we do it feeds back to our body and brain about how to feel. So sheet number 2C in direction towards what number 2D ers most, and the person we want to be alongside our problems, can bring about big sheet number 2CS in mood. This technique sheet number 2CS our focus from the problem to the solution, and we can start to fix our gaze on the horizon that we are heading towards. Chapter summary. Focus on making good decisions, not perfect ones. Good enough steers you towards real change. Perfectionism causes decision-making paralysis, whereas improving your mood demands that you make decisions and take action. Keep changes small and sustainable. When someone is down, we show them kindness because we know it is what they need. So, if you are commit number 2D to managing your mood and overall mental health, commit to practicing self-compassion. Once you understand the problem, use it to help you work out where you want to go and focus on the horizon ahead of you. Chapter 5. 321,789, 1,922,903 feet greater than how to get the basics right. Imagine taking the best football team in the world and number 2D-ing them on the pitch without any defense players on their side. Suddenly, opponents that never previously posed any threat would stand a much number 2D chance of winning. While the defense players may not be as exciting as the strikers, we all underestimate their power to change the game. We all have the tendency to neglect the basics. Your mother tells you to get to bed early and eat your greens and you can't help but roll your eyes. Thanks, Mom. But when it comes to defense players, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. The basics are the first thing we let slide when we are not feeling so good. We withdraw from friends, we drink too much number 1 FEE and then can't sleep, we stop exercising. But what number 1 errands does it really make? Well, the science suggests that it's a bit like taking each of your defense players number 1 the pitch and leaving an open goal. The basics are not glamorous. They don't give us that hit of having bought something that promises to fix everything. But they are cash in the health bank. When life starts throwing things at you, those defenses are going to keep you standing, and help to pull you back up if you fall. It's worth pointing out that you don't have to approach them all perfectly. There is no perfect diet that everyone agrees on, or optimal amount and type of social interaction. These are not goals to be achieved to perfection. They are foundations. Those defense players need as much nurturing as the strikers, because they are crucial for staying in the game. But where one slips, another can help out. When those defenses get compromised, it's not a sign of fault or failure. It's generally a sign that life is happening. For example, a new parent is likely to have no control over the sleep deprivation they face. But they can take extra care to eat well and keep up social contact with friends and family, which will help to keep them well throughout that period. Understanding what those main defenses are means that we can keep them on the radar. We can check in with them on a regular basis and look for small ways in which we might be able to improve them and strengthen them. If you are tempted to skip over this because you think you've heard it all before, then it's even more important to read it. We underestimate the power of these defenses so much that they are number 2C and the first things we let go when we are under stress or not feeling so good. But not only is the science crystal clear on these, in recent years, it has also shown their potency to be even more far-reaching than we once thought. Exercise. Whether your low mood is mild and intermediate number 2D or you live with a major depressive disorder, exercise has potent antidepressant number 1 FECTS, Shook et al., 2016. For those who use antidepressant medication, adding in exercise leads to be number 2D or results Mura et al., 2014. Exercise leads to higher circulating levels of dopamine as well as more available dopamine receptors in the brain, Olson, 2011. This means it increases your capacity for pleasure in everyday life, McGonigal, 2019. So finding exercise you enjoy does not only number 1 F or you joy while you are exercising, but increases your sensitivity to find joy in all the other aspects of your life. Unfortunately for us, the concept of exercise has been branded as a painful process that you must go through for the purpose of altering your appearance. The conversation is mostly centered around enduring pain for some aesthetic gain. No wonder that so many people see exercise as not for them. The focus on how moving your body makes you feel has been let number 2C out of the conversation for too long. Yet, throughout the pandemic many people have rediscovered the joys of exercising in green spaces. Being forced to spend so much time indoors made the number 1 FECTS of that daily walk all the more salient. The psychological impact of exercising, not on a treadmill indoors, but outside in nature, is starting to be demonstrated by the science. In a study of adults undergoing cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT) for depression, the group whose therapy was provided in a forest number 2D Inc. showed a remission rate that was 61% higher than those who underwent the same program in a hospital number 2D Inc. Kim et al., 2009. For those who can't stand the idea of vigorous exercise, the slower movements of yoga can still have significant number 1 FECTS on mood as well as increase the ability to calm the mind and body more quickly, Josephson et al., 2013. Deciding to add an exercise to your life does not mean you have to take up ultramarathons or weight number 2C ing at an expensive gym. In fact, it is much easier to gain momentum if you start as small as you can. You might not even leave the house to begin with. You might put on your favorite music and dance around until you feel number 2D loud a breath. If you can make it small and choose something that has the potential to bring you joy, it is much more likely to be sustainable. A number 1 F workout won't change everything, but a small increase in physical activity that you can keep up has the power to become a catalyst for significant life change. Exercise does much more than just give you a number 2D boost in mood. It positively impacts on your mind and body in countless ways. But don't take my word for it. Find a way to increase your activity in a way that feels enjoyable or meaningful to you and see how you start to feel. Sleep. Take anyone on this earth and start depriving them of sleep and that person will become vulnerable to both physical and mental illness. But that relationship between sleep and mental health works both ways. When your mental health dips because of stress, low mood or anxiety, your sleep is likely to be disturbed at some point too. Whichever came first, you can almost guarantee that when your sleep takes a dive so will your mood and your belief in your ability to bounce back. When you haven't had enough sleep, everything feels 10 times harder. Sleep has a profound number 1 FECT on every aspect of your well-being, so if you think your sleep is not as good as it could be, it is well worth your time and number 1 F or to try improving it. For those who experience long-term insomnia, working with a specialist is highly recommended. But if you want to work on improving the amount or quality of sleep you are number 2D ing, I have included a list of tips below to get you started. Again, we are not aiming for perfection and you don't have to do everything on the list to get good enough sleep. There are times when life happens and it pulls you away from a healthy sleep number 2D earn. If you work sheet number 2CS, travel long haul, have young children or a habit of staying up late playing computer games, you can learn to check in with yourself and put in place whatever is necessary to steer you back in the right direction. Keep vigorous exercise to earlier in the day and try using the evenings for relaxation. A warm bath before bed can help your body reach a temperature that is optimal for sleep. Try to get as much natural light as possible within the first 30 minutes at number 2C or waking. Our circadian rhythm that regulates our sleep number 2D is governed by exposure to light. Indoor light can help, but natural light outdoors is best, even on a cloudy day. Step outside for 10 minutes first thing in the morning. Also make time to get outside as much as possible throughout the day. In the evening, when the sun goes down, keep lights low. When it comes to screens, the research suggests it is less about the color of the screen light and more about the brightness. So turn down the brightness on screens in the evening as much as possible and switch them number 1F altogether as early as possible. Make time in the day to tackle things you are worried about. Make your decisions, make your plans, take something number 1F, your to-do list. Number 2D, in good sleep is also about what you do during the day. We are much beat number 2D at problem solving during the daylight hours, but if we push those problems away and ignore them, they tend to pop up at night when we are trying to sleep. So clear the desk and clear your mind as much as you can. For those nights when laying your head on the pillow is the cue for your brain to switch on and start worrying, try keeping a worry list. Put pen and paper beside the bed. When a worry pops into your mind, write it down. Just a few words or bullet points. Do the same for any other worries that come up. This becomes your to-do list for the next day. You make a promise to yourself that you will dedicate time tomorrow to working through these problems. That way you are free to let them go for now and refocus your number 2D attention on rest. You can't force sleep. Making sleep happen is not something you can choose to do. Sleep happens when we create an environment in which the body and mind can feel safe and calm. So don't concentrate on sleep, concentrate on relaxation, rest and calm. Your brain will do the rest. Avoid C8 number 1F INA in the late at number 2C or noon and evening. The energy drinks that are being promoted to young people number 2C and contain high levels of C8 number 1F INA that disturb sleep and cause symptoms of anxiety. As a general rule, it's a good idea not to consume too much of anything in the lead up to bedtime. This especially includes big meals with high levels of refined sugar. Anything that gives you a spike in stress levels is not going to help you get to sleep and stay asleep. Nutrition. Mental health and physical health are weaves in the same basket. If one moves, the other moves. In recent years the science has made strides in demonstrating this. How you feed your brain influences how you feel. The research is even showing that improvements in nutrition can have large benefits for depressive symptoms, Jacka et al. 2017, and making positive changes to how we eat might help prevent depression age, Sanchez Villegas et al. 2013. When we understand that our mood is influenced by several factors, it makes good sense to tackle that from all sides. With just a moment of reflection, most of us could easily come up with a few ways in which we could nourish our body. Number 2D. The research being done across the world suggests there is not one strict diet that protects your mental health. The traditional Mediterranean diet shows the largest and strongest evidence base for mental health benefits, but many others show a reduced risk of depression, including the traditional Norwegian, Japanese and Anglo-Saxon diets too, Jacka, 2019. The things they all tend to have in common are the inclusion of whole, unprocessed food, healthy fats and whole grains. There is a lot of misinformation around food, so in the resources section of this book I have included suggestions for further reading from credible sources, if you would like to read further. But the overarching idea is that making good nutrition a priority, and educating yourself about what that looks like if you need to, is a great idea for tackling low mood and improving your mental health. But as I mentioned before, making huge life transformations overnight is less helpful if you cannot sustain them. Instead, it is helpful to ask ourselves on a regular basis, what is one small change I could put in place today that would improve my nutritional intake? Then repeat this every day. Routine. Another key defense player for mental health and resilience seems to be routine. This may have been the most underestimated influence on our well-being until the pandemic turned routine upside down and inside out for so many people. Repetition and predictability help us feel safe, but we also have a need for variety and a sense of adventure. So we like to have routine, and we like to break those routines occasionally, preferably with something pleasurable, meaningful or exciting. When we are not feeling so great, routine can sue, number 1F. You might stay up late watching television because you are blocking out stressful thoughts about work the next day. Then it's harder to get up in the morning, so you stop your morning workout. Or maybe you are out of work for a period of time and you start taking a nap in the at number 2C or noon, but then struggle to sleep at night. Being number 1F work changes how much social interaction you get. You don't leave the house for days and struggle with finding a reason to shower, or even get up in the morning. Then your appetite goes but you have no energy, so you mostly spend the day drinking number 1F EE. And so the cascading number 1F ECT of a routine change unfolds. Each of these seemingly small changes number 2D is because they add up to and create your experience as a whole. If you have a tall glass of water and you pour a small drop of cordial into it, you might barely be able to notice a number 1F errands. If you add another couple of small drops, the general color of the water begins to change. Enough of those small drops over time will dramatically change the overall color and taste of the water. So each small drop counts, even though they may not be enough by themselves to change how you feel entirely. That said, there is no perfect routine. Establishing a balance of predictability and adventure that works for you within your unique circumstances is key. Noticing when that goes number 1F track and pulling it back is a big step in the right direction. Human connection. While looking at number 2C, your own body and mind is essential, nurturing good quality relationships is one of the most powerful tools we have in maintaining good mental health throughout the lifespan, Waldinger and Schultz, 2010. When our relationships are not going well, it can have a catastrophic impact on our mood and emotional state. It can also work the other way. Deterioration in our mood can be damaging to our relationships. It can leave us feeling disconnected from the people around us and trigger a deep sense of loneliness. When you're feeling low, the thought of facing anyone can be exhausting and overwhelming. This is the trap of depression. It tells us to withdraw, hide away, don't see anyone until we feel number 2D. So we wait to feel number 2D. But in doing so we hold ourselves back. Taking some time to be alone can be re-energizing and recharging, but it can also very easily become a downward spiral of rumination and self-loathing that feeds depression and keeps it going. Being with others even when we don't feel like it, to observe them, interact with them and build connections with them, can help to number 2C our mood and pull us out of our own head and back into the real world. We know from the research that good quality social support is associated with number 2D outcomes when it comes to mood. Nakahara et al., 2009. Many of those people who never tell a soul when they're struggling firmly believe that presenting themselves as anything less than their best would make them a burden to the people around them. But the science suggests otherwise. Social support has positive number 1 FECTS for both the one receiving it and the one providing it. Inagaki et al., 2012. So, when we are struggling and we want to pull ourselves up from low mood, one of the most powerful things we can do is swim against that strong tide that is pushing us towards isolation and loneliness. We must not wait until we feel like it, because feeling like it doesn't come first, the action must come first. The feeling follows on it. Number 2C. The more time you spend making real connections with other people, the more you will start to improve your mental health. Spending time with other people doesn't mean we have to talk about how we feel. In fact, we don't have to talk at all. Just be around people, watch them, smile at them. Share whatever conversation you can manage. Low mood and depression can make us feel uncomfortable and anxious around people. We get concerned with how we might be coming across. We tend to spend so much of our time criticizing ourselves that we start to assume that others are judging us too. Can you remember which thought bias this was? Despite all the thoughts and feelings that hold us back from each other, human connection is our inbuilt mechanism for resilience. When we struggle, connection helps. Good quality, safe connection. If that can't be found in family or friends, then professionals can provide that until you are able to find and create new, meaningful relationships in your own life. Chapter Summary. Our mental health defense players provide the foundations of good health. When we nurture them daily, they pay us back with interest. If you do one thing today, make it exercise. Choose something you enjoy and you increase your chances of keeping it going. The relationship between sleep and mental health works both ways. Prioritizing sleep will help your mental health, and making changes to your day will at number 1 FECT your sleep. How you feed your brain influences how you feel. Traditional Mediterranean, Japanese and Norwegian diets show benefits for mental health. Human connection is a powerful tool for stress resilience. Your relationships change your biology and psychology. Chapter 6. 321,789, 1,942,903 feet greater than understanding motivation. As we build up a psychological toolkit with skills that help us manage through life, it's easy to imagine that motivation is one of those tools. But motivation is not a skill. Neither is it a fixed personality trait that we are either born with or without. So many of us know exactly what we need to do, we just really don't feel like doing it right now. And when later comes, we don't feel like it then either. Sometimes we can get all fired up about a goal and things start moving in the right direction. But a few days later that feeling fizzles out again and we're back to square one. Motivation that goes up and down is not a fault in the system. It's part of being human. It is a sensation that comes and goes just like our emotions, so we can't always rely on it to be there. But what does that mean for our dreams and goals? Your brain is constantly paying at number 2D attention to what is happening in your body. It knows what is happening to your heart rate, your breathing, your muscles, and it reacts to the information it receives, making judgments about how much energy it should expend on the task in front of you. This means we have more influence over those feelings than we think. When we start to change what we are doing with the body, it has an influence on the activity in the brain, which in turn influences the feelings that are produced in the body. This is something we can use to our advantage. When we're dealing with that, can't be bothered, feeling, there are two main prongs of it. Number 2D, act. Learning how to cultivate that feeling of motivation and energy to increase the chances of it appearing more. Number 2CN. Learning how to act in line with your best interests even when motivation is absent. Developing the capacity to do what you need to do, even when a part of you doesn't feel like it. Procrastination or anhedonia. I want to make a distinction here between procrastination and anhedonia. Procrastination is something everyone does. It's when we put something number 1F because the job we need to do triggers a stress reaction, or some other feeling that is aversive. I have made hundreds of educational videos for social media, but give me a video to make that feels uncomfortable or number 22 cult to get right and I will skirt around the job all day, convincing myself that all those other things I am number 2D ing done is me being productive. In fact, it's usually me procrastinating because the idea of making that particular video feels number 22 cult or uncomfortable that day. Anhedonia is something number 1F errant. This is when we stop taking pleasure in the things that we used to enjoy. Anhedonia is associated with a number of mental health problems, including depression. When we feel that way, we start to question whether anything is worth the number 1F ort. Things that once brought joy start to feel meaningless. So we stop doing the things that have the potential to lead number 2C our mood because we have no desire for them anymore. When you start to avoid something that is important or potentially meaningful to you, the natural response is to wait until you feel like it once again. You wait until you feel energized or motivated or ready. The problem with this is that the feeling does not arrive spontaneously, we need to create it through action. Doing nothing feeds the lethargy and that, can't be bothered, feeling and makes it worse. Motivation is a wonderful byproduct of action. It's that great feeling you get when you are on your way out of the gym, not on your way in. It's that feeling of energy and momentum you get once you have started something and your brain and body start to rise to the challenge for you. Sometimes the feeling is fleeting. At other times it lasts for much longer. Much of that will depend on all the other factors that are either working to foster it or squash it. So when we start doing something, even when your flat mood says, I don't feel like it, we can trigger a biological and emotional sheet number 2C. This doesn't mean that number 2D, ing some music on or doing a single workout is going to solve all your problems or change your life. But it sets in motion a series of events that sheet number 2C your direction. If you start doing that thing that you wish you felt like doing, you have more chance of stimulating your brain in a way that brings about enjoyment or a sense of motivation. For someone who is struggling with depression, and soup number 1F hearing from anhedonia is a part of that, the pleasure in activities and the motivation to engage in them takes time to return and can be very up and down for a long while. There is a period in which we have to grind, doing things that #2D to us, even when we don't feel like it, in order to re-engage with the pleasure we used to feel. Chapter Summary. Motivation is not something you were born with. The feeling that you are energized and want to do something cannot be relied upon to always be there. Mastering motivation is building the capacity to do what number 2D is most to you, even when a part of you does not feel like it. Procrastination is number 2C, an avoidance of stress or discomfort. Anhedonia is when we no longer get a sense of pleasure from the activities that we used to enjoy. This is number 2C, and associated with low mood and depression. If something number 2D is to you and could benefit your health, don't wait until you feel like it, do it anyway. Chapter 7. How to nurture that motivation feeling. Motivation is more than just a reason for doing something. When we use that word in conversation, we number 2C and mean a feeling of enthusiasm or drive that fluctuates just like any other. Some things nurture that feeling, others floor it at number 2D and it. What things do you do that are number 2C and followed by a feeling of motivation and energy? Science tells us about the things that work for most people, but the detail you can establish from looking at your own life with curiosity adds significant value. You cannot change something you are not aware of. Suspending time observing and documenting the thing you are trying to tackle is hugely important and gives you the best chance of generating that feeling of motivation more of the time. Here are some things that invite that feeling to be present. Move your body. Motivation does not come from a specific location in your brain. It is not a fixed part of your personality. It's also not an essential tool that we use to make us move. It is most number 2C and a consequence of that movement. But what if you have no motivation to exercise? Perhaps the key to making exercise a sustainable part of everyday life is to find a form of movement that you can begin even when your motivation is low. Research shows that doing even small amounts of exercise is number 2D than nothing, and anything more than your usual amount of movement will help boost your willpower. Barton and Preet number 2D, 2010. Find something that feels easy, something that brings you joy, something that feels like precious time out rather than another boring job that has to get done. Add in friends, good music, and anything that helps you to look forward to it each day, rather than dread it. Adding in some form of exercise, however moderate, will pay you back in feelings of motivation. You may have to use the strategy of acting opposite to the urges, because you won't feel like working out. But the impact this simple action will have on that, can't be bothered, feeling for the rest of the day is unmatched. Make this one thing happen and you are number 2D-ing yourself up to win. Staying connected with the goal. In therapy we number 2C and set goals with people and help them to work out how they are going to achieve them. But the real work happens when things slip number 1F track. This is the point at which those without support might be vulnerable to giving up. But we need to get to work using the setback to strengthen the future. If we can beat number 2D or understand what caused the failure and that number 2D-ing back on track is just part of the process, then we are in a good position to predict when it could happen again and steer around those challenges in the future. I think one of the reasons that some of my clients say they feel so much more motivated at number 2C or an appointment is because they have spent time reconnecting with their goals. If that thing we are working on is not fresh in our minds, we can quickly lose momentum. Whether you are working on improving mood or any other aspect of your well-being, it is paramount that you stay connected with your goals because they will demand constant nurturing. Return to them on a daily basis. You can do this through journaling. It doesn't have to be a hugely time-consuming task. It can be 1 minute at the beginning of your day, listing the 1 or 2 things you will be doing that day towards your goal. Then, at the end of the day, writing a few lines to reflect on your experience. This kind of task is easy to maintain because it doesn't require too much time, maybe a couple of minutes at most. But it ensures that you are accountable to yourself every day and keeps you focused on your goals. Keep it small. Any big task will invite that, can't be bothered, feeling, so keep it small and keep it focused. People transform their lives with therapy, but that doesn't happen overnight. They don't return to their second appointment problem-free and with an entirely new mindset. Individuals take home just one task at a time and focus on that. We can only focus on one thing at a time and we only have limited ability to do things that we don't feel like doing. But of course most of us don't stick to this. We can see that life needs an overhaul and we try to do one big transformation all at once. We expect too much of ourselves and then fall into despair when we burn out or give up. When that happens, we are less likely to try again. When motivation for a long-term goal dips, it helps to have small rewards along the way. Not so much external rewards, but internal ones. That emotional pat on the back you provide for yourself when you congratulate yourself for your number 1F orts and acknowledge that it has been worth it because you are heading in the right direction. Doing this helps you to lean back into number 1F ort, knowing that you are on the way towards the changes you want to see. When we acknowledge the progress and small victories along the way, we start to recognize that our number one efforts can influence our world. Feeling that we have agency in this way helps us to feel energized to keep trying. This is a great reason to start small and develop new habits, ensuring that each one gets embedded. Once you sustain the habit of prioritizing your healthy behaviors, they will sustain you. Resisting temptation. Sometimes we are trying to build motivation to help us take action. But change can also demand the willpower.